New York Daily News broke a report resurfacing Peyton Manning's alleged sexual assault from the late 1990s when he was at the University of Tennessee, in which the report touches on a few different things. Most importantly, it brings to light, once again, this alleged sexual assault that happened. There was 2 court documents that were eventually, at one point, confidential, but Manning broke that confidentiality agreement when he wrote an autobiography and slandered the woman, Cartwright, Dr. Cartwright, who was mentioned, who was on the receiving end of this alleged sexual assault. So let's look at the Q&A from those court docs, and we'll read through them. All right, so if you focus down halfway, let me be very clear there. It was not just his behind, his rear end. That was on your face, but his genitalia was on your face. That's correct. It was gluteus maximus, the rectum. Continues to say, the testicles and the area in between the testicles, also known as the gooch.
Gusset.
What is it?
The gusset.
The taint. I call it the gooch. And after all that was on my face when I pushed him up and off, and it was like this, and as I pushed him up to get leverage, I took my head out to push him up and off. And what, if anything, did Mr. Manning withdraw? Did you say anything or scream or screech as you felt this on top of your head? I pushed him off, I said, you're an ass. Did you yell? Did you scream? Anything like that? When he turned, he looked at me and saw that it was anger in my eyes. I did not want to get confrontation with him. I can see the anger. And when I looked at Mr. Saxon, he was just shocked. He had his mouth wide open, and he was in shock and disbelief. All right. So Peyton Manning is getting checked out for a foot problem, right? Doctor is on the end of the table checking out his foot. Manning thinks it's funny to pull down his pants, expose himself, and literally sit on her face. The excuse that they drew up to get out of this was that he was joking by mooning, like pulling down your pants,
I know mooning.
showing the moon. Okay, I wasn't sure if they have that in Scotland. Yeah. Mooning a friend of his, Mr. Saxon, who was walking by. Except Mr. Saxon said 10 years after this incident in like 2007, 2008, when this came up again and got buried again, that there was no joke. He wasn't even there. There was no mooning incident. Peyton Manning sexually assaulted this woman, by definition. That's not the big question here. So that took 5 minutes to get through. The big question becomes, why does the media bury this story every single time? When there's things like Deflategate, Tom Brady was found innocent. The NFL found nothing to prove him guilty. Cam Newton leaves a press conference, gets shredded for a week. Peyton Manning's on the end of a sexual assault. Nothing?
The subject of Peyton Manning's so clear to me coming in from outside the US to see that this guy, he emulates what people aspire to be in the United States, right? He is the golden child. He kisses Papa John when he wins the Super Bowl. He drinks Budweiser. This defies race. This is not a racial thing between him and Cam Newton at this point. This is just Peyton Manning being in a field of his own, where they try to mask some of the criticisms that could come up of him. Now, I understand. I'm not naive. Late 1990s, Facebook, I don't think was even around at this point. I understand if this happened today, despite race,
there's video of it, and he's screwed.
Say that's Johnny Manziel. That's screwed, right? You're screwed. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Back then, different time in Tennessee, in the South. I don't know what went on there. I understand the animosity that goes on between athletes and the relationships. I became very close with one of the trainers that helped us in the team. I would never in a million years think about doing that. We'd have laughed and a joke. But it's a sexual assault case. That should have been taken as serious then as it does now. This is not. I'm thinking of an ideal world, but it's not. Back then, that would have been readily overlooked, whereas today, of course, it's a little bit different. But nonetheless, you're right there in terms of if this is anyone else, even if this is Tom Brady, I think, or someone else and this is brought up, it's still highlighted.
To put it in perspective, what would be the fair treatment of Peyton Manning? If you want to talk about balance in the media, right? The fair treatment of Peyton Manning is, every single sports blog from now until preseason football, there should be slandering words against Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning cheats and uses HGH. Huge headlines on Huffington Post. Not going to leave Huffington Post alone. It's not just you guys. Deadspin. Peyton Manning's a cheating scumbag. Peyton Manning put his balls on a woman's face, right? That should be their headlines. Let's go over to the USA Today. Here's 5 reasons as to why Peyton Manning should be getting shredded for his sexual assault case. Because that's exactly what happened with Tom Brady and the Patriots. And oh, you're a Patriots defender. They cheated. It's so obvious.
I'm not so naive. I understand what college students do. They make stupid decisions. He's young. He's immature. He might think that's funny. At that time, it might have not been as thoroughly broadcasted, the sexual assault and things like that. Just not acceptable in that environment. And it should have been, but we know that back in those times it wasn't as explained in detail and as serious an issue as today. Nonetheless, not acceptable. But my main issue is with how the media portray it and how they kind of disregard it and push it forward as more of a question rather than a headline that if it was Cam Newton or if it was anyone else back then, they still would have broadcasted it to be, look at how horrible this is.
But that's what the media does.
Exactly.
They make nothing into something. That's what they
But this
literally
isn't even
did with Deflategate. They took the most bullshit story in sports history and plastered it to shame one of the players because he's such a huge figure. If Peyton Manning deflated a ball, nothing. But if Brady does, everything. If Brady put his ball sack on a woman's face at the University of Michigan, are you fucking kidding? That is trending every goddamn site from here to eternity. Not only is Brady a cheater in the NFL, not only is his coach a cheater in the NFL, but he cheated on his wife by sticking his balls on a woman's face. But no, that's not the story you're going to get. I'm just putting it in perspective. The story you're going to get is, and I think I have the headline. No, that's the Arsenal headline.
That's the story you're going to get.
The harder to get line is the New York Daily News reports that Peyton Manning is likely guilty of sexual assault, and there might be more controversial stories that come out. There's a huge difference there. Huge difference. Weigh them. I was going to say like Manning's balls.